All right, bigger footy time. Round 10 is in the books. A couple of big upsets on Sunday, and we've got the A-team here with me to dissect it all. It's a big pod, I reckon. We've got strength of schedule ratings that I've been punching into the spreadsheet.
Excited for that.
I'm really looking forward to telling you guys all about that, even though you guys maybe not that keen, but we'll find out how good your team's actually going once you look at the strength of the schedule numbers. We're going to have a think around Tassie's marquee player. The best clubbyman team is developing as we speak across the years, so we've got another one to plug in there. Charlie Coleman was the runaway winner last week. Well done, Chom.
Head and shoulders.
Head and shoulders. But we've got Moff on the DJ decks over there. Moff, how you going, mate?
Mate, good. It's good to be back here with everyone.
It is good. Big Flan over here. Flan, how are you,
Patto,
mate?
JJ, Moff, great to be here. Great round of footy.
And JJ down in the cave in the den in Geelong. Let's kick it off with you, JJ. How was your weekend? What did you get up to from a commentary perspective? And what was your moment of the round?
Good morning as we sit down to you boys. But my moment of the round was the game I actually called was the Dogs and Essendon, one-way traffic. And we're going to get to the Dogs very, very shortly because they looked the real deal to me. But my moment of the round was big Timmy English, who's back in red-hot form, back in All-Australian form. He is the All-Australian ruckman of a couple of seasons ago. He was being pushed to the ground early in that game. He fell right on the goal line, decided quickly, and who said ruckmen aren't quick upstairs, tapped the ball through his legs, genuine tunnel ball style, as if you'd see your 3 or 4 year old do it, back to a teammate. I think it was Leber who snapped it for a goal. It was very, very quick thinking, and it was a sign of things to come because the Dogs put the accelerator down and did not let up.
Yeah, it was brilliant. Love that. My moment of the round was West Coast with their first win in 282 days and honouring the memory of Adam Selwood. Incredibly sad news just months after the passing of his twin brother Troy and now Adam. So horrible time for Selwood family and everyone close to them. But West Coast were outstanding. It was a very special win to honour his memory. It was great to see the entire club arm in arm at the end of the game for the song.
Yeah. They spoke well, didn't they?
Yeah.
As well after the game.
Oscar Allen.
We called the Eagles potentially get the win last week. You boys went here. Remember JJ, we got Mac to pull up the West Coast fixture and we said if they don't win next week against the Saints, then the next win's not coming for a while. So the form was building. So, yeah, that was great to see the Eagles get up. So well done, Flan. And my moment of the round, I went to the pub on Friday night with a couple of Carlton mates. And I just love watching those Schwannies, Flan.
Jeez, that was a good win, wasn't it?
Jeez, they strangled them. They defensively, the Carlton could not get any space. Like, that was unbelievable. And I'll give you a sneak peek. Sydney, on my strength of schedule, have had the hardest draw so far this year. So I'm not giving up on the Schwans. Do not give up on the Schwans. That was impressive, wasn't it?
It wasn't. Top three worst games this year. That game?
Yeah, well, it wasn't aesthetically pleasing, but it took a full team defence and it was on display. What about you, Muff?
Mine was just a little moment in that Dogs game was when Riley West sat Archie Roberts on his backside, kicked, snapped that goal, and then gave that little bit of a too small celebration you see in the NBA. It was good. Bit of colour in the game. I liked it.
What a beast. Jeez, he must have a strong core.
That's a spoiler. He's one of mine. Back off. I've got little Riley in the we actually interviewed Ed Richards after the game, and he said he's like, I love the too small Sally. We don't see much of that, do we, in our game? I mean, the Hawks are bringing it to the fore a little bit, but we don't see many of the players sort of mimic what the Americans do, even though I've got no doubt they all watch it. So I loved it.
Yeah.
Bailey Humphrey had a good celebration as well on the Thursday night.
Oh, what was his one again?
Can't remember, but
must have been.
But it was a good one.
Was it a Bailey time? He was looking at his watch or something, wasn't he? Was that what it was?
Yeah.
Oh, that's what it was. Yeah. No, that game, I'd love to see Gold Coast Hawthorn in the finals. I felt like there's a bit of spunk to that game. Fiery. Some of Nick Watson's individual efforts and
I reckon different result, MCG.
Yeah. That was a good game though, wasn't it? It was.
But
speaking of Bailey Humphrey, he's a real difference maker for them around the footy. There's no surprise they're using him around the ball. He's a beast around the footy. So, it was a good game. But I reckon the biggest story for mine to come out of the weekend was, from a positive perspective, was the Dogs. I think they're premiership contenders. They have to be the way they're playing. They've endured, and we've spoken about teams in the past couple of years who have had to endure injuries, and other players, maybe second-tier players, maybe your B-grade players have all stood up in their absence, and when the A-graders have come back, you're a better team. Well, that's what's happening for the Dogs, and Bontempelli, watching Bontempelli live is just phenomenal. The second goal, I think it was the second goal he kicked where he picked it up off his laces, turned and snapped under pressure, was just incredible. You just don't see players do that live, but they are absolutely, utterly airborne. Down back, they look good with James O'Donnell and a few others. The question mark I'll throw to you guys is probably still around the forward line. Now, they're the highest or second highest scoring team in the league, so it's a funny question to ask. But their best avenue to goal is probably Riley West. Buku Khamis kicked 3 goals. Aaron Norton was the only Dog to not really get involved on Saturday night. So the question marks, while Sam Darcy isn't there, probably just revolve around their forward line. I spoke a lot about Bontempelli needing to play forward last week. He kicked a couple, but they're getting a lot of goals from their midfield. Is it sustainable?
I think it is, the way their midfield's going about it. Like, they had 61 inside 50s, 85 more disposals, 8 more clearances, 12 more marks inside 50. Ed Richards has just got it on a string. Bailey Dale's had 49, broken the club record.
Only 3 contested.
Come on, heavy hitter.
But
the Bombers were ordinary, weren't they? But yeah, the Dogs. Do you know what I love about the Dogs? The way they run and use their legs out of stoppage. Like, think back to pre-season where you got to do handball grid games, and if you just stay in the phone booth and just flick it around, like you just get tackled. So you got to be able to wear the heat inside, be strong through your quads, and then break and chain out. That's where they're looking really dangerous at the moment.
That's the big shift they've made, I reckon, Patto. They still have high numbers. They still flick the ball around a lot, but spot on. They won a premiership with the phone box stuff, flick, flick, flick. Half of the handballs were throws, but they won a premiership playing that style, and they stuck with that style for quite some time. And now I reckon they've evolved. So, Bontempelli's always been able to run out of stoppage, but he's probably a little bit like Pendlebury. He can create run with his hands. Fraser runs out of stoppage, and Ed Richards is the one. He's the one who, because he's a halfback flanker who naturally wants to get it and run like Bailey Dale does, Richards is the one who, whenever he gets it, instead of thinking handball or quick kick, he's thinking tuck it under the arm, take the game on, and run out of contest. And he's the one that's really transformed their midfield. That's why I think they do have the luxury of sending Bontempelli forward, because their midfield is so strong without him. So, look, behind the ball, they look really good. I watched Rory Lobb so closely on Saturday night, and they were playing against nothing. Essendon had a terrible night at the office, but I just continually amazed by Rory Lobb's ability to pick up playing key backs so quickly. He sees the game beautifully. He's a great distributor by foot. I think, with the English back in form, with their midfield as deep as it is, with their backs playing so well, I think you've got to catapult them to the premiership contenders category.
Yeah. I've just pulled up the premiers of the last few years. How many teams have won with only one key forward as a premier? So last year, Brisbane had Joe and Eric, Collingwood in 23.
My check. Mason Cox played,
Yep.
Frampton.
So Collingwood probably showed it can be done recently. So I think Dogs will be looking at that with a bit of confidence. Cats in 22, Cameron and Hawkins. So they definitely had the 2 big boys. The Demons in 21.
Brown and maybe one other.
They did have them. Yep. And then before that, we get into the Richmond, Jack Rewalt, Tom Lynch. So, Collingwood in 23 would be the one that's bucked the trend, but there's been 2 key forwards in every other team.
Well, maybe it revolves around how much Buku Khamis can improve as a key forward. I think it's going to be tough for him. He played well the other night. He took an absolute hanger. frightening athlete. Jumped over Mac Andrew last week, took a big hanger this week, kicked 3 goals. He's a pretty good finisher. Now, that's like I place so much value in players who can finish their work, and that's the query on Aaron Norton when he's not getting a lot of the footy. If you can still kick 2 straight, you've still done your job, but he struggles to finish his work, and Karma's finished his work quite nicely. So they're going to rely on Riley West, and Vandermeer's a pretty talented player. He's improved a lot without Waitman in the team. So loving the Dogs' work at the moment. I think they've got the Cats Thursday night, so that's going to be a great game. The Bailey Smith Cup, of course, which we'll all be looking forward to.
Yep,
and it's their forward half pressure as well. They just lock the ball in with that frontal pressure. So if you're getting that amount of supply into the forward half and then you're not letting it come out, you don't necessarily need the big key forwards to mark. They're just controlling all of the play.
Can't believe Moff's gone after Bailey Gale for only 3 contested possessions. Unbelievable. The man's had 50.
Yeah.
True. You can only get him how you get given him to. So SM weren't defending. I watched that game and it was just keepings off, wasn't it, JJ? They couldn't get near it. I feel like Goldie got a bit monstered. And
surely Scotty West had more than 50 touches in a game before.
No. He beat Ryan Griffin and
Matty Boyd, I think.
Someone else, maybe Libba. Matty Boyd.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So, and what, Essendon, are we just giving them a pass mark? Was it just the Dogs too good, or they just didn't turn up?
Sydney made them look good last week. I don't know.
Reality check for Essendon. They've been doing, they've been cruising along all right, creeping along all right. And I think most of us went there thinking, okay, well, this is a more genuine test. How will you go? And, cold, hard reality check. Like, even Zach Merritt, I was watching him a fair bit in the second half, just looked dishevelled, just had no energy, looked really lethargic. I mean, you can have one of those games a year, maybe 2 at most, but they run into a buzzsaw. So give Essendon not a pass, but we'll accept it, and we won't want to see it again.
So we think the Dogs can win the flag, and our original tip, my original tip pre-season, flag mantle, Freo have finally showed up. Now, JJ, what did you make of this one? I thought the Giants are in a bit of a tricky spot coming back from Geelong, shorter rest. It's popping out to me on the strength of schedule ratings. So, it was set up there for Freo, who played on the Thursday night against Collingwood. They were refreshed, ready to go, and I thought that was a great performance. So, still a little bit of hope there for the Freo fans.
I think it was 9 days versus 6, which is a bit of a difference, but not an excuse for GWS. They've got a giant-sized issue in the ruck with Kieran Briggs. He's nowhere near it. He was dominant a couple of seasons ago with his clearance work and with his dominance around contest. He's a worry. Smashed
Jackson
him. Absolutely smashed him. Luke Jackson. Luke Jackson's a really unique player around the footy. And we spoke pre-season about when, Patto, you threw them up as premiership contenders. And, I really like them when they've got Jackson and Shea Bolton around the ball. Now, ideally, you've got Hayden Young around the ball as well. But Sarong and Brayshaw, 66 between them. Bolton was the match winner that they hoped he'd be. Now, we're not asking Shea Bolton to be a match winner 2 out of every 3 weeks, but you need him to have these games, maybe once a month to be that difference maker for them. 24, 3 goals, 3. That's a massive night at the office and probably separates the two teams. And I think positively, you look at, Josh Tracy didn't have a big game, hasn't had a big game in a little while now, but I think last week about, I'm not in love with Cox, Ryan and Pearce in the same team. That's when they're getting a lot of the footy. I don't think it's a great method for them when they're getting a lot of the footy. Cox only had 6 touches, Pearce only had 4, and Ryan had his 18 or so touches, but didn't take 12 or 13 uncontested marks like we can see. So a bit more direct from Fremantle, but they've got to go and frank it this week. So, they lose to Collingwood at home, opportunity lost. They go and win on the road in Western Sydney, massive win. You've got to go home and you've got to frank that win on the weekend. They've got Port Adelaide in town. So what an opportunity to just end the season of Port.
Well, they've got 4 of their next 5 at home against Port, North, Saints and Essendon. So it's a huge opportunity, those for all winnable games at Optus with a trip to Gold Coast in the middle. But, yeah, timely return to form for the Dockers.
Yep. I can see Freo making a big charge now. I think, the way you've laid that out. So, I know we have a look at the 8 and who could possibly come in or out, but I still have some faith that they'll be in the finals this year based on their strength at home. If you're a Port fan, JJ, what confidence levels do you have each week that your team's going to show up and give consistent effort? I mean, on the weekend we saw it in the first half, and then they got absolutely belted. In the second half
if I'm a Port fan, I feel like my club is just completely and utterly wasting this season, throwing it away. Now, I'll throw it back to you guys in a moment. You can talk about the coaching situation and what the hell is going on behind the scenes, but they've had 3 losses this year by 75 points or more. They dead set give up when the game feels beyond reach. Port Adelaide have given up 3 times. So 91 points in round 1, the first game of the season against Collingwood, if that's not bad enough. Now, Collingwood are a great team. We get it. We accept it. But that's a massive loss. They shouldn't be losing by that much. They lost by 90 points against the Dogs a couple of weeks ago in Ballarat. Look, the Dogs are a good team. I get it. And then 76 points against Geelong. Geelong are incredibly banged up. They lost Dangerfield in the first half, so that offsets your loss of Horne-Francis. So don't give me the injuries. But to go down 12 goals to 2 in the second half, they completely rolled over. Port fans are filthy. They're angry. They're ringing up the radio stations over there saying, what are we doing? And if I was a Port fan, that's what I'd be saying. What are we doing? Because I don't know if you know, boys, the person taking over is already a part of the current coaching group. So the performances we're seeing, in a small part, are Josh Carr's responsibility as well. And he's the man supposedly taking over.
Yeah, it's not good. If you're a Port fan, it's pretty grim. And they've got to go to Perth, try and bounce back against Freo before they have the bye. They're sitting in the bottom 4, potentially at the bye round. If they can't win this week against Freo, you've got to say that's curtains for the season. And as JJ said, an absolute waste.
It shows there's probably a couple of cracks behind the scenes, like the style of losing like that and teams going on big runs and blowing you out. Ken's such a big motivator, each week. We love his old footy, local footy sort of rev ups, but that can emotionally sort of wear you down after the long season. So they just seem like they get up for big contests, and then it sort of you can't maintain it.
Well, it's not just those 3 beltings as well. They also lost to the Saints at home. They got a good record at Marvel in the past. They lost to the Bombers at Marvel earlier in the year. So there's some ugly results.
The only Port player seemingly, going all right at the moment is Connor Rosey, and he's playing that cushy role that they've sort of built over the past 5 or 6 years. They like to roll their winger through and roll their mids through and give that opportunity to that defender who comes up and sweeps off the back of contests. So Rosey's playing that cushy role at the moment. It's helping him. Is it helping them? I'm not so sure about that.
Yeah, well, it's interesting you say that, JJ, because Houston played that role last year. Dual All-Australian playing that role. Now at Collingwood, he's been a bit underwhelming because hasn't had the same amount of footy, and people just expected him to have the same output, but he's actually having to go back and defend, which is probably different. And then you look at the Port players that have played that role. It was Houston when he was there, and then before Houston, it was Darcy Byrne-Jones, and he was an All-Australian. So it's you look at it, and it's like this role, they can get away with not having to defend, and that's why they're so good. Again, the praise, but it's a very interesting.
So what? If we're being reborn in life, boys, we're coming back as halfback flankers, because it is just the golden ticket to 35 a week and not having to defend. Now that if you can kick, that's you can set the game up, but playing that role, it is just an absolute joy.
Yeah, no, I love that take from you guys. It's definitely a trend at the moment.
On the flip side, Geelong, really impressive. Lose Danger, who's been unreal all year, so important for them. And then Jezza steps up, kicks 7. And up until this point, he's been pretty solid without setting the world on fire this year. But if this can sort of unlock his top form for the rest of the year, look out.
Yeah.
He's pretty impressive.
What have we been saying, and what did we see? Cameron's goals were all different scenarios. The one that really stood out to me was a big contest at centre-half forward. Ollie Henry crashed the pack. The ball spilled on the ground. The two Port players fell over. Jeremy Cameron running back to goal, has a bounce, kicks a goal. We haven't seen that from him because Dangerfield's been closest to goal. Now, we've spoken about it a lot, and, it's been picked up and queried in questions about, whether teams even have systems. Well, they do have systems, and now Jeremy Cameron is the system. So the system was Danger, and they were using Jezza on the wing and around the footy and whatever. Now the system becomes Jeremy Cameron, immediately kicks 7 goals. He does love playing against Port and he loves playing at Adelaide Oval, but he becomes the system. So not a big surprise to see him kick a bag straight away.
Yep. He can get you any which way, on the lead, out the back, on the snap. Yeah, unbelievable player. Well, Saturday afternoon in the wet, I was glad I wasn't playing local footy this weekend. Saw Collingwood and Adelaide, your boys, Moff, the Pies. Adelaide went in, with their 3 tools, made the sub for Tex. Moff, did you go to the game?
Yeah, I actually have to admit something. I went to the game for the first half, and then it was raining. So I went home at halftime. Sat on the couch.
Chilly, was it, Muff?
So real Melbourne Demons territory there, supporting the Pies. But no, good gutsy win. I think the ability for Collingwood to just change their game style to suit the conditions and just lock down the game. It's been our forte for the past few years, but it was on show again. In
fairness to you live a 5-10 minute walk from the ground, so it's not like he's carted all the way back out. So
it was
he did
literally
have that option.
A 500-metre walk.
Yeah. What do you think of the Crows forward setup, JJ?
There's been a lot of chat about, it's going to cost them. It hasn't cost them because at the moment they're in the top 8. They're 6. They're about where we thought they would be, right? Like they're 6-4. They've pushed Collingwood. They seemingly push Collingwood each time they play them. They just can't get over the hump because the Pies are a good team. But, they're 6-4. They're the second highest scoring team in the competition. So, I just can't land on, the fact that playing 3 tools is not the right way to go about it. In saying that, do I think they'll have this same lineup in round 20? Maybe not. Maybe by then it's evolved and maybe it's more Daniel Curtin and it's less Tex. Maybe it's Tex every second week. Maybe the roles change a little bit. But at the moment, you can't argue with them being the second highest scoring team in the competition. And that they have got enough ground level. They should. I'll change it. They should have enough ground level players to put pressure on. When you have a look at their team, they've got Ben Keys in the lineup. They've got Josh Rochelle in the lineup. They've got Alex Neil-Bullen in the lineup. They've got Peatling, who occasionally goes through that part of the ground as well. So there should be enough forward pressure in that team. And as you guys know, your pressure in the forward line is one part of it. How you set up behind the ball is the other part. So there can be great pressure on the ball, but if there's not great layers and great defensive system behind that, then it doesn't matter what sort of pressure you can get on the footy. So don't have any real queries about their forward mix right here, right now. Does that mean it'll be the same in 8 weeks? I'm not sure.
They were pretty good for most of the day, the Crows. It was just that burst at the end of the third quarter. Pies kicked 4 goals in 10 minutes, and that kind of separated the game. And Rankin kicks 2 out in the full. If those go through, they potentially win that game. So he's had a rough trot against the Pies at the G. Last year he had the run too far, and then this time
he did his hammy as well in that same sequence. I thought Jeremy Howe was unbelievable on Saturday as well. Kudos to him. Obviously, no more having the 3 tools. Maynard having to play big, Howe having to play big. Yeah. Frampton played well as well. But yeah, he's been an underrated player for his whole time at Collingwood. I feel like there was a year where he nearly could have been All-Australian talks and then did a knee or got injured, but he's been so good.
Yeah.
So.
I think smart players play well in the wet, and Collingwood are a high IQ team.
Yeah.
So I was very impressed. Collingwood did what they needed to do. Yeah, that was easily a game that could have gone the other way because Crows were definitely right in it, but made a few blues. Now, before we get to the Sunday upsets, I just want to touch on Friday night, Flan. What did you make of it?
Well, spoke a couple of weeks ago about needing to hang tough for 4 quarters, and Friday night, that was just that. Well, the Blues got the jump, But the Swannies just never let him get away, and that last quarter was pretty special, and the cream rose to the top, and the class of the Swannies slick ball users was very evident. Isaac Heaney had 38 and 7 scoring shots, kicked 2-5. If he had to kick 5, had it been 5-2, we would have said it's one of the greatest individual performances of all time. When he turns it on, he's just about as good as it gets. And he was impressive. Warner was great as well. He had 30 and 2. Sheldrick had his best game. That's massive for Swans. 21, 7 tackles, 4 clearances. McCartan and the guys at the back were awesome. Shut down the Blues forwards, and no De Koning opened the door for Grundy to have a big night, and he was close to best on ground. If Heaney wasn't there, you give it to Grundy with 47 hitouts, 19 disposals, and that big goal at the start of the last quarter got everyone going, and the Swans
using
just
his running
home.
ability and challenging in the ruck. That was awesome from Grundy, and I loved Chad Warner's check side goal from that stoppage. Like that hand to foot in that tight space was amazing reaction speed.
A very special win. We need to bounce back after last week. It was pretty poor showing in that first half against Essendon, so it was great to see us hang in for 4 quarters and hang tough. And even though the Blues had the lead at the start, we never let them get away and reeled them in.
Just on Chad Warner, we were watching me and my housemates on Friday night, and we can't work out if he's left or right-footed because he's that, like, I'm pretty sure he's left-footed. Is he not?
Oh, he's a right-footer.
He's a right-footer. But, like, he's so good on both sides of your body. So if you want to get your kids into the AFL, just get them kicking both sides.
Yeah.
I had this conversation with my son, and he said, no, I'll just balk him. I'll go back onto my left. He's a left footer. Like, it's a bit strange when you're a right footer and you've got left-footed kids at, footy, cricket.
Right side's just for balance for most lefties. Warner's definitely benefiting from that. Look, he's been All Australian, playing as that sort of part-time forward, coming up to stoppage. But I think he's just benefiting, Flanas, from just being an inside mid, just playing mid, 30 and a couple, just being around the ball all of the time. And he's so damaging that he is a player. A lot of people, you say, I'd rather him get 20 good ones than 30, in total. He's a player, because his possessions are so good, you want him getting 30. You don't want him getting 20. You want him to get more of the ball. So, he's having a great season. It will hurt you, though. Amati gets suspended for 3 more weeks. That's going to mean you're going to have to just rejig and reshuffle and try and keep that forward line afloat until he gets back. He didn't set the world on fire, but he had 5 scoring shots. I think he is, in a way, a focal point for that forward line. I think he's a consistent source of goals. He doesn't get a lot of opportunities, but generally speaking, even though he kicked 2 goals, 3, generally speaking, he's pretty accurate. So he's going to be a loss for the next 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah, I dare say McInerney was also suspended, then Francis, who had the concussion. Those 3 will come out, but Mills was really impressive in his return to the the VFL. Yeah. He might come back in. Adams is just about ready to go to come back in, and McLean played a decent game of the 2s. He'll probably come back in as well. So you've got 3 senior players to replace those guys going out. So hopefully that can, hold the fort until Amati gets back. But it'd be nice to have a full team.
Yeah, it just feels like one of those years you can't get this everyone on the park at the same time. In regards to, I'll just quickly touch on. Now, you guys are pretty clever. Moff, you're pretty clever. Maybe Matt can do this, just handball it off. The Michael Voss audio after the game. So he spoke in his press conference, and I reckon, and hopefully you can overlay the conversation in a moment.
I guess it's stating the obvious, isn't it? They finished off the game better than us. I think that's what makes you pretty pissed off, to be honest.
I reckon he really went after, in a way, his fitness staff. His comments after the game were really, really pointed. And I'm telling you now, Monday morning when they get back to Icon Park, I'm pretty sure he's having a really stern conversation with the fitness staff there, because he spoke about, he was really pissed off they couldn't finish off the game. And he mentioned it a couple of times. And, now the proof seems to be in the pudding. They continually get run over the top of. And I reckon, even he now is starting to buy into I'm sick of this. What has not gone on in the summertime for us to not be able to run out games? Because the proof is in the pudding. And at the moment, they just can't get it done late in games.
He was a bit angry last week. Oh, Vossi, he had to go at butts at a press conference. So he's
you'd
on
be
edge.
you'd be fuming though, wouldn't you? In fairness to Vossi, I think because Butts asked the question so that his microphone would pick it up, right? I mean, put the bloody microphone in the right spot.
Yeah. No, I like that. You got to teach him a lesson.
Could you just answer it for Channel 10 at 9
on
and 7
time.
Fox?
No, that was fun.
Oh, that's good.
Well, look, Sunday's games, I think Richmond North, if you're a Richmond fan, you're happy with the way the team's competing. They had chances to win that again. Seth Campbell's going really well. He's exciting up forward.
Banks.
Anytime
Banks.
Bolter's playing, like
They look a lot better with Bolter.
They look so much better. Like he did a decent job on Larkey. Oh, Finbar was interesting, popping up and taking some grabs. So he's a fun character that we get to watch now. But I don't know how much we really want to go into this game. Like North, I felt like North were going to win by a lot more. I know, JJ, you like the Tigers. Flan, did you watch?
Yeah, it was a really enjoyable game to watch, even though it was 16 versus 17. Doesn't have a hell of a lot of impact on the season. But, some stars of the future showed their wares. And love Sammy Lawler. Is that big mark that he took in the goal square. I don't know if I've ever seen a senior player a first-year player jump over a pack of senior players and take a big grab in a pack of 6. Like, that was really impressive grab. And he had 2 and was in the teens for disposals. Just continues to get better every week, and he's going to be an absolute superstar.
Starting to make sense for Richmond, isn't it? Starting to just look a little bit more like an AFL team that's and look like a little bit more like a team that's going to improve over the coming years. Guys like Campbell and Banks, they're just starting, and Brown, they're starting to. Now Richmond diehards would say, "Well, come on, guys. Of course, like we've been seeing this from these young players, but." In fairness to us, we're not Richmond diehards, so we're not watching them as closely as they are, but it's starting to make sense when we watch them. But, North won the game, so we'll give them some love too. Zerha's
the one that I loved on the weekend. He had the busted artery in his foot, and he was hobbling around, but he still managed to kick 4 and win the game.
Powell played a good game as well. He sort of set the tone for them. I think he had 10 or 11 in the first quarter. Charlie was really good down back. Give some love to Toby Pink as well. Did the job on Tom Lynch. It's been a while. I know Lynch has missed a lot of footy. He hasn't kicked a bag of goals in a long time. I saw a graphic pop up on I think it's 2023 or 2022 since he's kicked 4 or more. Moff, it's quite some time. So I know he's just a target or just a sort of a structural piece for them, but he's an expensive structural piece. Yeah. And, Cherry played a great game as well. So well done to the Roos for getting another win.
Yeah. I can't believe you had Tom Lynch on your feed, JJ, to kick 4. That he is not in him anymore.
Well,
you're
it was
right,
a little bit of a
piece, but I think you learned the hard way.
Kane put him in the gun, so I sort of thought I'd try and combat him and show him. He didn't even kick. Did he kick a goal? I think he might have got 1 late. Did he, Tom?
No,
he got 2.
I got 2, but last time.
Because how tall is Toby Pink? He was giving away a bit of size.
Lynch is genuinely tall.
The last time Tom Lynch kicked 4 or more goals was round 23, 2022, where he kicked 5 goals against Essendon.
Wow, that's a long time. He's missed heaps. He has
missed a lot of footy, though.
That's a long time. Anyhow, good work by the Kangas getting the job done at the MCG. Would have been, less. They don't get to play there much either. But and then my Lions, they're just sleepwalking at the moment, boys. The D's got over the top of them in the last quarter. What was it? It was 4-1 in the last quarter, and Melbourne or Nam got the job done.
Yeah.
Maxi Gawn is having one of his great years. Another 20-plus disposals, another 46 hit-outs. Dominated Darcy Fort, 8 clearances, 7 marks, 7 score involvements. Sherry, we just mentioned him. He's probably the only one in good enough form to pip him for All-Australian. But if Gorney can keep going the way he is, he'll join Robert Harvey, Rashudo, Ablett Jr., Franklin and Dangerfield with 8 blazers, and that's the most.
Wow.
And, what a great win by the D's. One of the best wins that group's probably ever had. Just when you thought, over the hill, they pull out a win like that and give us a reminder that their best is still very good, and they've got a lot of quality players. Langdon, Melksham, Bowie, Rivers, Salem, they were all up and going yesterday. So really impressive from the D's.
You could tell that meant a lot to them. they have had a good rivalry against Brisbane over the last 6-7 years. There's a bit of spite in some of these games. I think if you can cast your mind back, was it Harrison Petty was
him and
copying
Zorko,
a fair bit from some certain players and Zorko. So, yeah, I saw Maxi Gawn's Instagram post of the boys having a beer in the change rooms. It felt like, that was one to savour and they'll look back on with a lot of pride. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know where it's at for the Lions.
Bit of a wobble.
Very, very surprising to see that. But, yeah, I mean, I think they're still going to be fine. But the strength of schedule ratings has probably got some info that maybe they haven't had the hardest start. So, yeah, a little bit of danger signs.
Well, Drew to North now lost to the D's, and I think it was evident in that last quarter yesterday. They're missing Danaher a bit. Like, they had Darcy Gardner go forward, and he did really well, kick 4. But in that last quarter, they just couldn't find a way forward, couldn't find a target in the forward half to take a clean grab. There was no marks inside 50. So, yeah, you worry whether Logan Morrison, Hipwood, and Darcy Gardner, is that going to be a premiership forward line? I'm not sure.
I said they were sleepwalking. I think they're it'll sound funny because they're in a winning position, but even, their mindset going into the last 2 weeks, has it been where it needs to be? That's why I think Hawthorn at the MCG this weekend is the perfect game for them, right? Because they've got no choice but to bring, the best version of themselves. 4:15 this Saturday at the G. Can't wait for the game. And I think we'll learn a fair bit about both teams. Yeah. If Brisbane get beat, then you can genuinely say, well, hello, this is a real flat patch in the season. And for Hawthorn, again, I thought they played really well last week against Gold Coast, but it's been a while since we've seen Hawthorn play a really dominant game of footy. So, I'm happy to continue to give Brisbane a pass because we know their best is incredibly good and the talent is all over the park. But let's see who can bring their best this week between Hawthorn and Brizzy.
Huge game.
Well, obviously, it helps that Brisbane banked some of those wins early when they weren't playing that well. So they're in a position to be able to ride out some losses. So watch this space. Only other game we haven't really spoken too much about is Eagles and Saints, other than your
Saints.
moment of the round off the top.
Deary me, the
Saints.
Yeah.
I got nothing.
They just don't have enough guys who are regularly damaging players.
Yeah.
Like, they've got Higgins, who's an absolute gun, small forward, kick 5. Marshall's a gun. He's had 27, 40 hit-outs and a goal. Naz has had 27. He keeps getting better every week. Wilkie's a great defender. But apart from that, they just don't have guys who hurt you.
Yeah.
They just accumulate. They get a lot of ball, like McRae and Sinclair. But do they hurt you regularly? I don't think so.
That's why they threw 1.6 at Finn Callahan. Like, they just need some better A grade.
The captain was it?
And the
Captain was average. 14 tackles, fantastic. You can find anyone to do that. Only had 16 disposals. And when you put him, these guys, you mentioned McRae, these guys as individuals are really good AFL players. But when you put them as a midfield collective, it's not going to get it done. That's why you need to have a guy like Callahan come in and be a real difference maker, a point of difference. That's why I think, they've got to continue to play Wilson and Wanganeen Miller and guys who've got fast feet, Filippo, inside mid. Now, they're not tough inside mids, but you need them around the ball because, Sinclair kicks the ball well, but he needs time and space. McRae and Steele, that's just not going to get it done as a midfield, particularly against teams that are dynamic around the ball.
Yeah. I heard Adam Simpson saying during the coverage yesterday, get Darcy Wilson into the mid. They've got to have some pace running through that midfield because it's just too stagnant. But really happy for the Eagles and Minnie McWalter. He's a great man, Minnie, and it's been one of the toughest initiations anyone's ever had in footy as a first-year coach. But yesterday you could see what he's been trying to instill into that group, and they all lifted. And even when the Saints made a charge towards the end, they held strong. And Harley Reid had his best game for the year. Oscar Allen and Waterman and Flying Ryan were back in form. They were all in sync. And the guys they brought in from other clubs, they were all pretty big too. Jack Graham had 17, a goal, 9 tackles. Liam Baker had a lot of influence around the ground with his run and ball use. Tyler Brockman had 16 and 6 tackles. So you're starting to see it come together for the Eagles. If they've got a full list there and they bring a big 4-quarter effort, they can knock you off.
Yeah. I have full faith in Minnie McWalter. One of the best blokes I've played footy with. And he is like genuinely like people will play for him. Smart footy head, knows his stuff. Like I know he hasn't had the most decorated career of all time, and so if you didn't know him, you think
they're the ones that make good coaches,
or he might not make it. He is like right up there with like a Fly McRae type for how much he is at heart and soul. He's like the best clubman personified. Mini. So
one thing about Mini, he never forgets anyone's name. Like I went to school with him. He was a couple of years above me at school, and I remember, we had only a little bit to do with each other at school, both part of the footy program, but hadn't seen him for years, and ran into him on the street, and he just Flanas straight away. So
if you got any personal dealings with Mini?
Profile though, Flan. Jeez.
No, I don't. I can't insert myself in this one.
Hey, we're all mini men.
He's a good man.
We're all mini men here at Bigger Footy.
That was good, JJ.
We've had we've had 10 rounds of the season now, and definitely early on I was banging on about let's not overreact. Wait till we get a month of footy. Now we've got a good body work, 10 weeks of footy. So I thought I'd go back and have a look at the strength of schedule ratings that each team has played. So, work out what sort of draw they've copped. My criteria being if you play a team in the top 6 on the ladder, current ladder position, then that's worth 3 points. Team in the middle 6, 2 points. Team in the bottom 6, 1 point. So you can get 3 points for playing the hardest team, 2 for the middle, 1 for the bottom. An extra 0.5 if you're coming off a 6-day break or less, and an extra 0.5 if you're playing interstate. All right, so we went back and put all that together. And Flan, you'll be happy to hear that, I alluded to before, that the Sydney Swans and Moff, your Collingwood Magpies, have had the hardest strength of schedule so far across the first 10 rounds of the season.
Gee, Pies have done well.
Well,
So that comes in at 25.5. So for an example of that, Moff Collingwood played Brisbane in round 6. They played a top 6 side, so that's worth 3 points, an extra 0.5 because it was under a 6-day break, and an extra 0.5 because they were away interstate.
Wow.
Looking at some of these numbers, so in terms of the hardest draws to start the year, I'll read out in order. Sydney, Collingwood, Geelong in third. They've had a pretty hard start and they're currently in 7th position. So we might need to look at some futures on Sydney and Geelong at the moment is probably the takeaway there. West Coast, they've got 4th. So I've actually got West Coast having quite a hard start. So, stay strong with Mini. The Giants are in next. So I think they've had a pretty tough start to the year. Let's have a look how that plays out over the next couple of months for the Giants. Saints, North and Port all come in next, and Carlton and Melbourne. So teams that are all quite struggling a fair bit have had quite tough starts of the year. And then we move down into some teams that are doing a bit better, but potentially off a softer draw. Adelaide, the Dogs, Freo, Brisbane. I've got as a pretty soft start to the year. Hawks also there. Essendon, Richmond, and the easiest draw so far this year is the Gold Coast Suns. So there you go.
It all checks out.
Strength of schedule.
It all checks out.
Any surprises? Any
Gold Coast are frauds.
Who are frauds?
Is that what we've come to the conclusion? Gold Coast.
So, based on this, Gold Coast are frauds. Essendon have had a pretty easy start too, so maybe some pain to come. And then the Hawks, we did talk about this a couple of weeks ago, who have the Hawks actually beat. So that's not a surprise.
The making of the Hawks will be in the next month. They got Brisbane, Collingwood, the Dogs and the Crows, and then a bye. So if they can break even there, that's going to make or break the season.
Yeah,
it's a good sort of temperature test when you overlay it with how do you feel when you watch them play. So when we watch Hawthorn play, we all think they're a good team, so they should be whatever they are. What are they, 7-3 or something? So it's like you look at a team like maybe Gold Coast, who you say might have had the easiest run. Well, okay, if they were 6-4, you'd be really worried. But they are where they should be based on who they've played. They've had some easy games, and they've had a lot of games they should have won. So I think maybe the outliers or the teams to be worried about are the ones who you think, well, they've had an easy run, but they're only 5-5 or they're only 6-4. They should be 2 or 3 games more advanced than where they are, considering who they've played.
That could be like Freo.
Sunsdraw checks out. They've still got a game in hand, and they've got the Saints at Marvel this Sunday. They're coming off a 10-day break compared to the Saints having a 7-day break and coming back from Perth.
Let me put this out there early, because I called the Saints and Gold Coast last year. It was 51-48. It was the worst game I've ever been to, ever sat through. They better not, and both coaches blamed each other. They better not serve that shit up this Sunday. I think I'm calling that game again this Sunday. They better not serve that shit up. The one thing going through my head when I was watching West Coast and St Kilda was, God damn it, I'm going to get a fired up, fizzed up St Kilda team who will do anything, whatever it takes to win next week. And I thought that's not good for the game.
There you go.
Looking forward to Sunday.
Yes, no, looking forward to that. The Best Clubman Award. My best clubman for the weekend was Jake Waterman from the Eagles.
Like it.
I think just the way he goes about it, gives effort every week. He's someone you'd want to run out alongside with. Great club person over there with the family ties. But yeah, Jake Waterman for me, he's a real competitor, plays with an edge. So we needed a forward as well in this bigger footy best clubman team. We've got plenty of backmen and the mids are starting to come together quite well. But Jake Waterman's my nomination this week. Flan.
I know we probably didn't want any more backmen. I've gone Mark O'Connor, who's a really underrated player at Geelong, 28 disposals at 96% efficiency and 11 marks. And he's just hard as a rock and uses the ball really well and plays his role wherever he goes, whether he's in the mid or whether he's down back. And he's starting to become a guy that opposition teams are going to have to put some time and work into, because he's starting to become a really damaging player every week. But yeah, just a real hard worker, and love the way he goes about it.
Yep. Riley West for me, we spoke about him earlier. He's got a big role and a big part to play in the back half of the year, but he goes about it in a very understated manner, has very little to say. Was carrying around a black eye on Saturday night, kicked his 4 goals. He's tough, he tackles, he competes hard aerially despite his size. And he's had to do it tough. He's had to be out of the team for quite some time, wait his turn. And I'll tell you what, one thing I wouldn't envy, I'd hate to be the son of a gun. I reckon it would be a really tough existence, particularly until you make your own way. So, all anyone would ever talk to Riley West about from a, imagine being at clinics and stuff and you get people saying, I loved your old man. Hopefully you're as good as your dad one day. So Riley West for me.
Yep, great suggestion. Muff,
I nearly went Riley West, so we're on the same page there, JJ. But I've gone Jesse Cameron. Obviously, this team needs a forward.
Just making a team
so
now.
I've played into that. Slightly, but he is just the best clubman. Like, he's funny. He's good to be around. He's seems like to be a really nice bloke. Doesn't take it too seriously by the looks of it, and just a gun. So you'd love to play with him, and even better, if you won a flag, you'd love to celebrate with him. So
yes, well done, Moff. No, I reckon there's 4 very even nominations there. So it'd be interesting to see who wins the poll. What did you say Chom won on last week?
He won on like 70%.
I told you guys that was a cheat code.
Yeah.
It's the biggest runaway best clubman we've seen. But so the side, we've got Lockie Keefe and Chom, fullback and centre back, with Aaron Francis and Nathan Broad.
We're tall
in the back pockets. Yeah, we're tall down back.
We need some half backs.
In the midfield, we've got Libba, Tom Atkins, Steele Sidebottom, and Mason Wood.
Well, we'll be a good tackling team.
That's the way
Yeah,
this side will give their all. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing who joins those boys this week. Final little pondering.
Patto's pondering.
Is a little ponder.
You've given that to a few different podcasts.
Would we get sued if we use that? Yeah, we can't go there. There's a strong legal advisor over there. Anyway, for those who don't know, there's another segment I have on a different podcast. But anyway,
plug in another podcast.
No, this is the only podcast you need. Tassie, Moff, you were bringing up last week.
Yeah,
their bonus. Can you just refresh us on what the bonus is?
the marquee signings, if you go play for Tassie in the first year, you're going to get 2 years of bonuses. The first year on top of your contract will be a $1.2 million bonus, signing bonus to go down there and start up the Devils. And then the following year, you'll get another 600 grand signing bonus. So 1.8 in total to go be the Phil Davis Cowboy type at the Devils.
But that's not for every player contract. That's just a
market.
separate bucket of the ambassador fund money.
I think so
that they can,
because they're going to get picks that have to trade out. So I'm not sure how exactly it'll work, but there will be one or two or how many there is that get this incredible $2 million signing bonus to go play at Tassie.
Yeah, so who would they be looking at? Marquee signings.
Yeah, well, there's definitely history here. Gold Coast went after Ablett, Jared Brennan, Harbrow, kind of those guys in still a bit of a window of their peak. Yep. And GWS went a little bit of, I think they mixed. They had a really good mix. They had some senior heads and some younger.
And missed out.
Hey,
it's GWS
they were getting Franklin. They ended up with Chad Corns, Dean Brogan, Stevie Johnson, Luke Power, James McDonald. It didn't help them. Didn't help them in terms of like.
Sorry,
we used to give them some fearful beatings early, but it set them up off field. I think that's where Gold Coast sort of picked a few guys who liked to drink, and Gary was sort of doing his own thing with his own program. So that's where I reckon GWS get a big tick versus the way Gold Coast went about it.
Definitely.
Yeah, so the cultural piece.
And if you're Tassie coming in, who would your target be, Flan?
Oh, you'd want some star power if you're going to be giving up that marquee signing money. So I'd be looking at your Nick Dacos, your Harley Reid, your Finn Callahans, Tom de Koning, these sort of blokes. If you could land one of those big fish, that's you can build your team around that.
Yeah,
I was thinking because it's going to be hard to take any of these Victorian blokes out of Victoria because obviously you're in the spotlight, you're in the media. Some of them might not like it, but a lot of the good players do like the attention because they get the brand deals and whatnot. So I've looked out interstate from Victoria, and Riley Thilthorpe would be the one I'd go and attack if I'm the Devils. He's only 22 years old. He's a man child. He's in the perfect window of his career to go down there. Yeah. And he's an Adelaide boy. So you take him out of Adelaide, he's not craving to go back to Melbourne. He might, money talks, $2 million, but he'd be the one you centre around and build around.
Good shout.
Very good
I don't
pick,
mind that.
Moff, because I was going to pick the same bloke. Now, you're reliant on the fact that he either loves money or dislikes the attention in Adelaide because, typically it's going to be hard to get them to leave their hometown. But, he's the type. I reckon you want a, and the money is the money. So, it's not like you're going to go broke if you make a bad decision on it. But 25-year-old, 26-year-old, someone like that who can really be a superstar for you. That's a good call, I reckon. Who do you reckon should be the first coach? Just quickly, I know we've got to run, but who do you reckon would be the best coach for them?
Oh,
Chris Fagan,
the horse.
Wow,
he's from Tassie.
He'd be how old is he? He'd be 70 by then, wouldn't he?
He probably will be, but no, he's not that old. He's from Tassie. Fags is from Tassie. I think he'll come in and he'll be involved in the club in some capacity, whether he's a coach or not.
If not him, you'd probably be looking at Adam Simpson, Horst Longmire, Kenny Hinkley,
Nathan Buckley.
Ooh, yeah, Bucks would be good.
There's a few good coaches. Available.
Yeah. If I was picking a player, I'd be going after a Charlie Curnow. I feel like if it's a schoolyard, you got the backs against the wall, Charlie Curnow. Or maybe you get what about little Sam Darcy's younger brother from the Dogs?
What's his name?
He looks like he's
You've been watching a bit of tape. You've been watching a bit of tape.
Cinch footy or something.
Baseline footy, little APS footy.
Baseline footy. Yeah.
Kalatumi. We got Kalatumi.
Go for a big young key forward. But I like the angle. I started thinking of a Josh Tracy or someone like that interstate. who potentially wants to
goals.
get out of that market, you're probably looking at clubs who are the clubs in the next 2 years about to bottom out.
Yeah.
And are they the easier ones to go and pick off? But I don't know who would that be. Is it maybe Collingwood in a couple of years? Nick Dacos, he's won a couple of flags.
Gee, that would be a story.
No, I don't see that.
I think there's more chance of there's more chance of hell freezing over than Nick Dacos going down there. But anyhow.
Yeah. All right, good show, boys. I think that had a bit of everything, a bit of strength of schedule talk.
Liked that.
Yeah, I was pretty proud of it. What do you think, Moff?
Yeah, I really liked you bringing that to the table. I liked how me and JJ are really on the same wavelength this week. We've been
Riley West, Riley Thilthorpe.
Yeah, I know. It's really that was good. But great show, boys.
Can you
the Joshua's.
put that? Is that IP, or can you put that spreadsheet out and put a bit of a summary on who the teams to look out for? What's the go? Or are you just going to keep that on your own laptop?
I can, yeah. We can give it out to the bigger footy faithful. So
is it a members only piece like the 200 plus members?
Put in the Patreon.
The Patreon.
Put in the Patreon. Yeah. Well, no, we don't. Yeah. But I'm sure we would. Champion Data have something similar, but it's not necessarily readily available. I don't know what else they would have in their criteria that'd be different to mine. But we'll put it out there and see what response we get.
Good data.
All right.
Good work. There you go. Pays to do the work. All right. See you guys. Thanks for listening to Big Footy, everybody. Have a great week.